Okay, this is the watercolor project that we're going to do today. And I'll show you the stamps that we used. This little house, and this is part of the WC Mini Cottages set. We used this little flock of birds with the My Fortress set. This is one of the new Bible journaling sets that Art Impressions sells. The Art Impressions little grass here, this is from the foliage set. This little set of dots, which is what we use for the flowers, from the WC Mini Flower set. We use this tree from the WC Tree Set 1. And we use these little leaves, and this is from the Covered Bridge mini set. And we also used a Stampscape stamp, the little bridge, which is the Stone Bridge Small. And so let's get started. Okay, we'll start by inking up the house with Marvy Le Plume 2 number 45 Sepia, and using the side of the marker, I'm just going to ink it up. And then I'm going to just stamp it about right here. Okay. I'm going to take my paintbrush. I'm going to squeeze off by just pinching off most of the water, and then I'm going to bring the color out of the lines. And I am not going to cross any lines. In other words, I'm not going to cross over these lines like this. I'm staying in each section, and I'm just softening the lines with a damp brush. Okay. Next, I am going to stamp my bridge, and I'm going to use a stamp positioner for this. And I'm going to just use this half of the bridge. So I'm going to ink it up, and then I will stamp it on my stamp positioner. Then I have a mask that I've cut out for the little house. So I'm going to just put that mask on it really quick. And then I want the bridge to come maybe about like this. I'll ink up the bridge. And just the one half, because the other half is going to be hidden by the house. And then I will stamp it into place. And I will wet my paintbrush, pinch it off again, and I'm just going to, see, I can remove my mask, just kind of bring out. This one is kind of a detailed stamp, so it's a little difficult. but try my best to get that as good as possible and into here also. Okay, now I'm going to want to have the background kind of continue on like that. And then I want also to have water, and it's going to come about like this. And so I'm going to use some African violet. And I will put some African violet on my palette. And so I'll just put some African violet. This is Marvel Le Plume 2, number 86, African violet. And to add the water, I will just wet my paintbrush, squeeze it off, and then I will dip it into the African violet, and I will just do horizontal lines to make the river here. So just like this. And I want to make sure there's lots of color here where I've got my tape. And also it's going to be darker underneath the bridge. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a bit. And then I'm going to add some number 15 olive green to my palette. Take my paintbrush, squeeze it off, and then I'll take a little bit of this green and extend off the horizon line here. Okay. Just put a green tint kind of in the background here, like this. Okay. Next I am going to ink up my trees with the number 45 sepia. And I'll move my palette out of the way here. And then I'm going to stamp one about right here. And then I'll stamp another one kind of in front of the house. There. Okay, and then I will take my paintbrush, squeeze it off, and then I'm going to just bring out the color in the base of these trees. Now that the water has dried a little bit, I'll get a little more of my African violet from my palette. Darken that horizon underneath the bridge. And then just add some more to the water. Needs to be darkest under the bridge. Okay. Now I'm going to want to add the leaves next to the trees. This is going to be a fall scene, so I'm going to start with number 43, Brilliant Yellow, and I'll ink up the leaves stamp, and these are shaped like little hearts, and you want the hearts facing upwards. And so I don't know how well you can see that, but you want this facing up this way. And then just randomly stamp them by your trees for both trees. Stamp, 3 or 4 times for each time you ink it up. I'll also stamp some down at the base of the tree. And get some more here. Okay, I'm going to clean off this stamp. And the next I'll add kind of an orangish color. This is number 83, Butterscotch. And I will ink up the stamp again and just go over the trees again to add the little slightly orangish color, and add a little more down here to the base of the tree. Then I'll clean the stamp off again, and this time I want to use a red one, so this is number 2, red, and I will just put a little bit of this on. I don't want a great deal of red, just enough to add a little bit red tint to these trees. And I'll clean it off again. And this time I'm going to add some of the 15 olive green, and kind of at the center of the tree just stamp in a little bit of green, because as the leaves begin to turn, they're not always going to be, there's still going to be a little bit of green left in the trees. And I'll clean off the stamp. Then I'm going to take my paintbrush, going to squeeze it off. I want to just be slightly damp, and then I'm going to just blot at them. I'm not going to swipe, I'm not going to brush. I'm going to hold my paintbrush like I'm holding a pencil, and I'll start with the lighter colors, and I'm just going to kind of dab at it like this, just to soften it a little bit. And get down here at the foot of the tree. Oops, if you add too much water, you can always dab it off and start again. Okay, now I think over here, I got some water down here. I think I would like to add some more to these branches over here that are over the house. And I'll take my paintbrush, wipe it off with my finger, and then I'll just dab these to soften the color. Okay, next I'm going to add some number 45 sepia to my palette, and I will start to color the roof. just to kind of darken that roof a little bit. Guess I should have really done this before I added the leaves. And also these sills here. And also around the door. Like that. Okay. Now I'm going to take my little grass stamp, and with the number 15 I will start putting some grass in. So I'll put some grass here along the side of the river. And you walk the stamp. So you don't just do a plain stamp and a plain stamp. You want to just slightly walk it. And I'll also put some down here. I'll also put maybe a little more over on the other side. And like that. I want to clean off my stamp. I'm going to take some more of the sepia that I have on my palette, and I'm just going to draw in a little path here that's coming from the door. And just like with the river, I just do sideward swipes to put that in. And it's going to be the darkest close by the door. Okay, now I also want to add some number 6 brown to my palette. And I will color in the door with the number 6 brown. And I'll take some more of the green and I will darken it up here at the top of the hill. And also on this other side here. So as the hill comes down. And get it over there and make sure that it's coming all the way down where the tape is, so that when I remove the tape I will have a nice little border around the work. Now as it dries, you can add a little more, maybe a little, just kind of pattern it to add a bit more texture up to this hill. Okay, and let me add more of the number 6 to the door, especially where it's a little darker. I'm leaving it blank by the doorknob. Okay, now I want to draw in a little bit of the sky. So I'm going to leave my brush a little bit wetter than normal. I'm using number 86, the African Violet. I am just going to brush in some color for the sky. And once again, I'm going to go all the way to the edge here so that I will have a nice border when I remove the tape. And this tree over at the right, we could probably actually have that go up a little higher too. Let me add a little bit of sky on the other side of the water. And let me get the leaves again. I'll color in, this is the number 43, Brilliant Yellow, and I will just have this go up higher. Maybe add some of the orange and have some of that. Well, actually this is the red, number 2 red. And I want to dry off that brush as much as possible and just kind of pat that in and make sure that we've got color going all the way out. And I can also kind of soften around the sky here. And same with over here. Okay, now I want to start adding color to the house. I want the house to be white, and so I'm going to use some of the African Violet that I have on my palette, and I'm just going to put some shadows in here where there would be shadows, which would be under the eaves and by the side of the house, maybe by the windows, and under these eaves up here. And under these, and just kind of brush it down. If it's too dark, just wet your brush a bit. And bring it down. Okay. Now I'm going to take the fine tip of my number 45 Sepia, and I'm going to darken this doorknob and also the threshold for the door. Then I'm also going to redraw here and darken the outside of the door a little bit, and also the trim around the windows to get those good and dark. And maybe draw this back down here again. I'm also going to take the fine tip of my African Violet, number 86, and I'm just going to draw some little windows in here, freehand. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm also going to color in this window up here. And I'll take my paintbrush and I'll just kind of dab those to soften it. I'm going to take my sepia again, the fine point, and I will darken up these eaves along here. Maybe darken along the edge of the roof also, and where it's coming down. And then I'll take my paintbrush and just kind of soften it up a little bit. Okay. I want to darken it again underneath the bridge with my African Violet from the palette. I'm going to add the birds to the sky, and I will ink these up with the number 45 Sepia. And I will just stamp them up here in the sky. Like that. And I'm going to take the fine tip of my African Violet and just run along the back there. I'll squeeze off my brush and just soften that line a bit. I want that line to be dark at the horizon. Okay. Let me clean this off a bit. Now I want to add some little flowers, and so I'm going to use number 55 Iris Purple, and I will just ink up these little dot stamps and just stamp a few around. Okay. I'm going to take my fine tip of my sepia and I'm going to darken in these tree trunks here on both sides. I'll take the paintbrush and just kind of soften it down a bit. Okay, and now I will remove the tape . And I'm going to let this dry a little bit so that I can erase any of the pencil marks that might be left. Okay, and I'll just take my eraser and I will erase the pencil marks that I used for the placement of the tape. And also for the placement of the water and the horizon. Just get it all done. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do is take my sepia and sign and date it. And then this is the finished product.